Hey everyone, Ryan Young, KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. Hope all is going well. A while ago I did a piece on our blog post on the belt system in Jiu-Jitsu. For all of our newbies that come in, they all want to know about our belt system because it's a little bit different than what a traditional martial art might have. So, like with all martial arts, we start with a white belt. Now a lot of times the question comes in, how long am I going to be at white belt? It really is up to you. About a year, that sounds about right. And the way our belts are set up is we have ranking bars on them in addition to the colors. So the ranking bars are black, except when you get to the black belt itself, then the ranking bars are either white or red. And then you have the master belts and the grandmaster belts. But we have a ranking bar on here. Traditionally, we have not had degrees on our white belts. But a lot of schools, in fact, I would say most schools today do them to kind of mark your progress through white belt. Whereas with here at KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu, we don't give any bars on our white belts. You just go from white belt to blue. So it gets to be a pretty long. It can be a long belt before you get any kind of promotion to your first ranked belt, which is your blue belt. But about a year. The next belt is your blue belt. Your white belt is your foundation belt. That's really the most important belt because that's where you learn your foundation. Then we go to blue belt where you start to learn some advanced techniques, and you have 4 degrees within a belt. So it really depends on some schools. What they'll do is they'll go according to our criteria. If you meet certain criteria, you get a degree. If you meet certain time criteria, you get a degree. Some schools go by time, some schools go by technical criteria. So you got your blue, your purple, also learning more advanced techniques. And this belt tends to be the longest belt. 3 to 5 years is pretty typical for a purple belt. Then you get to your brown belt, and that's another couple of years. And then you get to your black. So you're looking at about 5, 6, 7, 8, between 8 and 10 years typically to run through all the color belts to hit black belt. Now, as far as a black belt goes, it's a little bit different here. Some schools will start off with a white bar on the black belt. And this just signifies that you are a black belt, but the white bar signifies that you're not in any kind of teaching program. So let's say you're a competitor, all you do is you compete, and you're not really interested in learning how to teach and get into a teacher program to start spreading the art in that way. Not in a formal way, at least. You probably help a lot of people along the way anyway. But that's where your white bar comes in. If at any point in time you decide that you want to enter a teaching program and your professor has a teaching program, then you'll get into the professor training program, at which point after a year you get the red bar on your belt. Now, most schools, when they award a black belt to a student or a member, they'll give this bar. And the reason why they give this black belt with the red bar is because that's the ones that you typically would buy. I don't know of anyone who sells this. These have to be pretty much custom made. You have to order them through your uniform manufacturer. Whereas this is pretty typical. How it became that way, I'm not sure. But anyway, with regard to the teacher program, 1 year in the teaching program, you become an assistant professor, at which point you get your red bar on your belt. And then a year later, you get your professor bars, which are these 2 white bars that go on either side of the red. So instead of just going black, red, black, it goes black, white, red, white, black again. That's a professor belt, as we like to call it. And then you get up to 6 degrees on this particular belt. The next belt after that would be your coral belt. And a coral belt, they call it coral because it resembles a coral snake. Red and black, red and black, red and black. And this belt is where your 7th degree comes in. So if you're a black belt, 7th degree, you get your coral belt with 7 degrees on it. Typically 10 years later, you'll get your 8th degree, still a coral belt. 10 years after that, you work up to your red belt, also known as a grandmaster belt. Now, grandmaster belts only top out at 9th degree. Now, these criteria that we're going with is from 1967 on. Prior to 1967, they had only 2 colored belts. We had a white and a dark blue for a professor. If you weren't a professor of jiu-jitsu, you wore a white belt. It didn't matter if you're training for 20, 30 years. If you never entered the instructor training program, you just wore a white belt. Belts really didn't matter then, but in 1967, Grandmaster Elio and Grandmaster Carlos, I guess between the two of them, decided that they wanted to create this system, which sort of modeled after Judo in the colors, well, some cases, but then they added the degrees to be different. And then with Judo, with this particular belt, the Master Belt, Judo belts are red and white, not red and black, so they did it a little different. I kind of like this. But around 2000, I'm not sure exactly the year, but around 2000, the IBJJF, which is the largest producer of tournaments in the country, they went with their own standard of belts. And it's largely this. Really, the changes happened in the black belt category. So what it takes to get your degrees, time-wise mostly. And from 1967 on, with Elio and Carlos Sr.'s system, each stripe on your black belt took 2 years, and you had to be teaching. So you either had to be at a school teaching or having your own academy teaching your own students. And every 2 years you get one of these up to 6, so that would be 12 years. Then you would have to wait 8 more years to get your coral belt and your 7th degree. 10 more years you get your 8th degree, 10 more years you get your 9th degree. And 9th degree is all you get, because the last 10th degree was Elio Gracie. He was the last one. There are no more after that. So that's really how the belt system went. And then in 2015, Hickson Gracie created his own federation called the JJJF, or the Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation. And he has a different set of criteria. In fact, from what I understand, they're revamping it as of this moment. It's the beginning of the year 2016. But for all you beginners, this is really how the belt system goes. It's not complicated. It's pretty simple and straightforward. And your instructor can give you more information on how they do it. But for the most part, these are how the adult belt systems go. Children cannot earn these belts. Typically, the earliest you can earn an adult belt would be age 16. And prior to that, they have a bunch of other belts too. 1967 on, the belts for kids were white, yellow, orange, and green. And then once they get to 16, depending on what level they were, the next belt they would earn would be blue belt. Now, the IBJJF has created a bunch of belts. They've got combination belts, white and gray, I think gray and yellow, black and yellow. I'm not really sure. The Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation, they've instituted those types of belts too. So I just wanted to give you a quick primer on what the belts are. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on the comments or email us at kamajujitsu@gmail.com. And hope all is well. Happy training. Take care.